Hey everybody, welcome back to another SFX video. Today we're going to be making some open wound blister type things on our legs. So before you ever start doing anything SFX, you want to make sure that your surface is clean, and if it typically has hair, you do probably want to shave that area because liquid latex will act like a wax and rip that off, or at least tug on it, and it's very uncomfortable and can be very painful. You want to make sure you have no sort of open wounds. I'm just filling up this little shot glass in this clip about halfway with liquid latex. It'll be refilled once or twice throughout the video because I ended up doing something different than what I had originally planned on. So this is just me like showing where I'm probably going to end up putting it. So I started placing it down and I was like, oh, I should probably, show where it's going, even though in the end clips you'll end up seeing it a lot better because liquid latex does dry this weird tan color. So unless you have like orangey tan skin, liquid latex will probably show up on your skin. And even if you do, it'll probably show up. It's a little bit shiny when it dries. I end up matting it down a little bit and then reusing a highlight thing to make it glossy again. It's really weird. e.l.f. has some strange products. I don't really know how to describe them, but I ended up using some of that to make it shiny. So here I am just layering it up, making sure it's a little bit thick. You don't want anything thin when you're making blisters. You want to make sure that the area is coated and is very heavily placed. So right now it's a little bit off camera. I decided to go towards my ankle, like almost on my foot, but just very far up on my ankle. This area ends up being ripped open later on because when I stood up, it kind of like tore, and I was like, well, I'm making blisters anyways, so not a big deal. So here I just started to put a little bit too much on, so I kind of just took it and like ran something like that down the side of my leg, and then went back to patting it on. Because you don't want to wipe. Patting it definitely is a lot better. When it dries, if it's on an area like your knee or your ankle, it will wrinkle towards like your skin shape. So when you're doing straight lines, it can make it look very fake and like not good. So you definitely want to make sure that you're patting it down. It just helps it look more skin-like. From here, I went up to my thigh, pretty close up to my hips, and on the other side of the liquid latex, you can see where it's starting to dry, how it's kind of shiny and a little bit tan. I was trying to zoom in, but for some reason my camera didn't want to focus. So, started focusing a little bit. I was trying to give you some different views of what it would look like, and this is just one leg. I ended up doing both, so here's like an aerial view. Then I did the other leg while I was waiting for the first leg to start drying, went back, and very quickly went over with a third layer on the right leg after finishing one layer on the left leg, just so you could see where all of the liquid latex was sitting. I'm kind of outlining it with my finger right now. So just so you can tell where it is and where it's not. So I didn't go over that kneecap, but I did go over my left kneecap. And I went a little bit behind my leg so that it was more blended, not as splotchy. But for a look like the burn, you can see how my right leg is already like tanner than my left leg. I'm very pale. For stuff like burns, you're gonna have a lot of irritation and redness. I don't know why my liquid latex did that. It's like the outermost layer decided to solidify, and that looks not okay. But it works fine. So yeah, that's what I did with my legs. And the color, when you're doing a burn, because it'll be all irritated and probably oozy, I just kind of, I don't know what's the term. For the most part, left it be. I did end up adding a little bit of makeup to it. I really honestly regret using that product. It ended up okay in the end, but for some reason I couldn't blend that at all. It kind of just sat there, so I ended up just pretty much plucking out wherever it was. So pretty much this entire step you can just disregard. I accidentally placed it on my kneecap as well, which is on my normal skin. You can see the difference, like, a lot in these takes. So I tried to be careful in the areas where it's starting to like drip because it is a little bit runny, but for the most part the top layer was um, dry, so I was staying away from the areas where it's white. I ended up going onto my foot up there, as you could see. Here is where I accidentally got it in like the actual white. After a little while I just decided to outline the areas just so you could really see. I couldn't tell on my camera for some reason, it wasn't picking it up as well as the video is now. For me it looked a little bit, like non-existent. So I kind of outlined it for the video. But like I said, I really wish I hadn't used this product. It's very pink and it didn't blend at all. I ended up really, really hating it. So that's what I meant about my kneecap, how it like wrinkled the natural wrinkles the way you would with the bending of your legs. I did have full movement of my legs despite having them coated in liquid latex, but it was my ankle that when I like put it flat, because it's kind of pointed at this weird angle, it's when I put it flat that it decided that it was going to rip, which was fine because I took care of it in the end. So I finished up with that. I was going to blend it with these makeup sponges, and then I realized how it did not want to blend. Then I went in at first with like these little scissor thingies that you kind of use for like your eyebrows and like nails and stuff like that, and I started making the holes that way. Was not a fan. Started trying to like lift that area up to make a couple big holes and a bunch of little holes. I ended up just taking tweezers and scissors and lifting up the area, and you see all these little dots. I did all of that doing that. There's actually a spot on my right leg where I cut my skin, and there was an actual little bit of blood, so I tried to be very gentle with that area. I do believe that I kind of like zoomed on it. Yeah, right there. So it was a tiny, tiny little cut in comparison to the entire, to my entire leg. It was very tiny. You can see it in a couple shots. So I just went across the whole legs, opening these holes. That's what I meant about my ankle, how it ripped, so I just used it as a big blister. Made a bunch of tiny holes, a bunch of big holes, just all at random. You don't want it to look like you planned anything. So there again is the close-up, but it's like now you can see it's very tiny in comparison to the rest of my leg. But you want to be very careful. So obviously the latex is off that area. That's where I accidentally cut myself with scissors. You do not want to put down anything that is going to infect the area there. Now I'm going in with just like this dumb little palette, so I very carefully went over that area, which is already red and irritated, so I barely put anything there for this. And I took this brown and I decided to start packing it into these like wound looking areas to make it darker on the inside. I do believe I took a photo of how that ended, so that should be up soon. So I did that across both legs. I know for people who have trypophobia that probably bothers you a lot. I know it bothered me looking at the photo even though it's on my legs. So this is me showing that it's all done. There's that area where it kind of like cut open. See what I mean about like the pink? It kind of just stayed on the outside. That was very annoying. So you can really see the wrinkles and my actual like skin details through the liquid. Oh my gosh, English, through the liquid latex. Then I decided to go in with a little bit of bloody scab and start scabbing up the areas. But first I was like, wait, I forgot to make it irritated. That area right there is actual irritation from the liquid latex, so I decided I would go with something like that to make the rest of the skin look irritated and like it was peeling off. So I added a little bit of blood. I used that brush right there and a lot of pink to go around the outsides of the liquid latex to really give it this irritated, agitated, ouchy look. Then I added in a bunch of blood. Pretty much everywhere. Here's a photo with the blood. There is another one. It looks pretty much the same. So I kind of just very hastily put in the blood after making all the wounds darker. This is me standing. This might trigger some trypophobia as well. I don't like the look of holes. I have it, so this does sort of bother me, but because it is my legs and my video, I guess I'm a little less affected, but, you know, be your discretion. So this is my little working place. It was basically just on top of a towel, I put down newspaper and then paper towels. So this is what I was using. It is by e.l.f. It is some sort of highlighter. I can't remember what it's called. I would not recommend it because it makes you look gross and sweaty, and I know people are like, oh, I want that healthy, dewy glow. This is not it for you, sweetheart. Not this product. This product is only good for when I'm making wounds oily. So I took all those photos. I was like, oh, I'm done. And then I looked at my legs and I was like, wait, but blisters are all oily. So this is really good for that. It really gives it this like gross color, makes it more like skin-like. Because you know, if you have all these wounds, your skin is gonna be like oozing and pussy. So it really brings out the color of the liquid latex. I really recommend this for that. And I mean, if you kind of. I broke it. I tried to pick it up with tweezers to keep using it, but ended up just moving it. I did not want to use my fingers and get a bunch of blood on it, even though in the end I ended up using my fingers to put the blood in all of these little holes. So I was trying to keep my hands pretty clean. There was a little hair, so I used the tweezers to grab that. It wasn't stuck in liquid latex, it was stuck in the blood. So you really just want to do this for the entire like wound. You want to go on both legs all the way up and down. It does dry a little bit to make it look almost like pasty, so I did end up using some Vaseline and very sparingly spread it across my legs. This will spread a little bit of the blood, but don't worry, you know, it's not supposed to look pretty. It's wound. It's not supposed to look perfect, so it's allowed to kind of be gross. That's me wiping off some extra blood. You can feel free to make the liquid latex area. You can use some alcohol activated paints that make it very, very dark red, irritated. I just decided to go for some powder color because I was too lazy to pull out anything big. So this is what I mean how you want it to look oozy. It looks a lot better when it looks kind of gross. And this is how it finally came out. The lighting in just a different side of my bedroom is so much more orange. I don't get it, but it's fine. So this is how they finally came out. There is a lot of liquid latex, I like to call them stragglies.